Hi, this is Mike Schmitz, and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at MindNode version 5 for Mac and iOS. MindNode is a powerful mind mapping application that allows you to quickly and easily create digital mind maps, providing an alternative to standard outlining when it comes to collecting and sorting information and ideas. While MindNode is not a new application, it's been quite a while since we last covered it. Back in episode 269, we talked about MindNode Pro, but a lot has changed since then. For one thing, there aren't different versions of MindNode anymore, as there's no longer a separate app for the Pro version. If you don't want to pay for the full version of MindNode, you're limited to just viewing and exporting MindNode files in the free app. In this tutorial, we'll be diving into the paid version of MindNode and showing you how to use it to create your own mind maps and organize information using MindNode on Mac and iOS. But even if you're familiar with MindNode, there are quite a few things which are new in version 5. There's the new Quick Entry feature, which allows you to start your brainstorming process by collecting thoughts directly in your menu bar, even when MindNode is not running. You can collect your ideas in outline format, and when you're ready to convert them to a mind map, you can do so to further develop the idea. There's also a new layout, which is designed to improve discoverability. Important actions are easier to find as they are now in the toolbar and no longer hidden away in the sidebar. And you can also customize the toolbar to better suit your needs. There are also many new design tweaks as many aspects of the user interface were updated to give the app a new feel. So while MindNode may not look all that different if you're familiar with the older versions, the entire app has been reconsidered and version 5 is really well thought out. While MindNode was always a solid application, version 5 is a major upgrade and highly recommended for anyone who wants to create digital mind maps on their Mac or iOS devices.